think, the main story everyone's talking about is obviously the return of McGregor. It's been 5 years since then. And so, yeah, I guess, diving right into the deep ends, what are your initial thoughts on McGregor versus Holloway?
Yeah, I think for his career's sake, I would have been probably would have been worked out better. Of course, hindsight is 2020, but would have worked out better to fight someone like Chandler, who's a little bit, I would say, respectfully on the slower side as far as talking about fast twitch responses and reaction time. I think that McGregor's a fantastic counter striker. Chandler obviously barrels forward, throws a lot of overhand rights, what you see out of a lot of wrestling dominant, fighters, especially maybe in the lower weight classes. But he's going to have his work cut out for him. I'll try to keep it brief, but I think it's going to be a long night for McGregor, unfortunately, or it could even be a short night. But I think that what Vegas is pricing in, that McGregor wins this fight almost 33% of the time. I legitimately, if I were to handicap it, I think he wins 10 to 15%, 20% of the time. If anyone can come off after what was one of the worst injuries in the history of the sport, something we've seen similar to Weidman or Silva, and come back from it after 5 years plus, it's probably McGregor. But I mean, there's just one thing if we're talking about just a lone injury, and in the case of Weidman, he even talked about after his injury he was hesitant to throw leg kicks, worried about it being checked. McGregor's always using that front kick, teep kick to kind of keep distance and distance management. I think it's going to be interesting to see. But on top of that, you have someone who's openly talking about overcoming a drug addiction. I don't think he's necessarily been training the way he has in the past, 2015, 16, certainly the last 5 years. So, and he is, as you said, going into the deep end.
Yeah, I think the question, I guess, is, what's the bigger variable, being off for 5 years or Max going up another weight class? I think the general consensus is the longer the fight goes, the more it favors Holloway. If McGregor is going to get it done, he's more likely to do so quickly.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying what McGregor's got a round or so. I think he's got 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And equally, here's the thing: is that I think there's a very, very real chance that McGregor catches Holloway early. You hear a huge crowd pop. But here's the thing: if McGregor catches Holloway, there's a very real chance that Holloway can get back. And if anything, I would even bet that he does get back if he's rocked and recover. I think if things go south for McGregor, they're not going to get better. I think Holloway has the durability. I think Holloway has, I mean, the speed at this point, past 2 or 3 minutes. I think you're going to see vintage 6-7 strike combinations out of Holloway. I don't think you'd see that out of McGregor. So I think that this fight's not going to hit the ground every time we say that. Maybe it probably will, but I'm pretty confident this is going to be a striking affair. And I think that I personally feel, and I know it's not like a betting channel, but just from a statistical percentage based assessment, I think that I think McGregor should be plus 600 plus around there. I think just a lot of name value. But again, if anyone can come off of his injury, 5 years plus off a drug addiction, and it's him. But I'd say more than likely Holloway kind of runs away with this one.
And yeah, I guess the focus on the card is obviously the lightweight division. So moving on to the co-main event, BSD Patty. It's long been a fight people have talked about happening, and now I think it's the perfect co-main event to complement McGregor Holloway. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm curious to see what you think. This is definitely a fight which I think could go either way. I think it's close to a 50-50, but I mean honestly, earlier in the week I was leaning more towards BSD, but when you break it down stylistically, I think if Patty, I think there's no argument that he employed a very weak game plan against Gaethje. I think that him, and this wasn't like he had 10 plus takedown attempts, and Gaethje was just stuffing the takedowns. I think he wanted to go out there and strike with Gaethje. Um, I think if he doesn't strike with Gaethje and he at least shoots a few times, I think we're having a different conversation, or maybe Patty was the one fighting Illy at the White House. But I mean, that said, I think Patty, I'm kind of leaning more towards Patty of late. I'm not confident at all, but I think Patty has more submission upside. I think Patty has more, he's better chain grappling. I think that Patty has the better striking, more creative striking. But BST could definitely knock him out. I am curious to see how this plays out if they get into the clinch. Because Patty is not weak. I mean, he's just very strong, good balance, good dexterity. I mean, he could really present some challenges with knees, elbows. But as we know, BSD is also a very highly skilled finisher. So for me, that's a pick 'em.
Yeah, I think that's one of the fights where you have no idea what to expect, if it's going to be striking or if it's going to be decided on the ground. And then and just again, Patty and BSD, two of the strongest guys in the division. So I could really see this fight ending any way, but via finish, via decision for either guy. This
Yeah.
is the most unpredictable fight on the card.
I totally agree. I can't pick this one at all. I think the only guarantee is that I think this is an exciting fight. We've said that about a lot of fights in the past, which weren't the case, like Derek Lewis and Ganu, a couple others. But I mean, this just seems like it's a recipe um, for a barn burner. I mean, it should be good one. The other one, which I'm going to make an unpopular pick for, is I also lean more towards Mario Bautista over Sandhagen. I think um, I think Bautista has won some controversial decisions, predominantly Aldo. But I mean, I think it was 29-28 against Umar. Granted, it was absolutely Umar, won that unanimously. But um, he won a round off of Umar. He's very good at controlling in the clinch. I think he could employ some volume striking, and I think he can win minutes off of Sandhagen. I think Sandhagen obviously has more finishing upside, but I think that um, Bautista is a win at minute here, a minute winner here, and I think over a 3 round fight, I think Bautista has a lot going for him.
Yeah, I definitely think this is again one of the ones kind of like McGregor Holloway, where if there's a finish, it's much more likely for the one fighter, and if it's a decision, it's much more likely in Mario's direction. And obviously MMA math doesn't work, but Mario's they do share a common opponent in Umar, and Mario's performance against Umar in enemy territory, I guess, in Abu Dhabi, was pretty impressive. Speaking again of lightweight, I know there's one fight in between, but kind of while we're on the lightweight run, I'd like to talk about Bobby Green versus Terrence McKinney. I think this is a safe bet that this is not going to go 15 minutes. McKinney has one of the shortest fighting times in the UFC, and Bobby Green has underrated power. You saw his quick finish, 30-something seconds against Grant Dawson. I think this is another one that's going to be. I don't know who's going to win, but I know either way, it's going to be an exciting one.
Don't leave your seat during his fights. I mean,
I've made that mistake before.
there might not ever be a fighter. I mean, if you even look at his Sherdog, I mean, what his last 1, 2, 3, 4, so 7 fights have all ended within 2 minutes and 30 seconds, of which 4 of them have ended within 37 seconds at his weight class as well. We're not talking about Despain at heavyweight or some of these prospects, that heavyweight prospects in the regional scene, which are just knocking guys out in 8 seconds. This is at lightweight, and not only is he knocking guys out, he's submitting them. He's getting submitted. He's knocking guys out. He's getting knocked out. I mean, he's putting it all on the line every single fight. So, yeah, that's obviously can't miss TV. And then we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I don't think the Philly shell is going to work as well against Terrence McKinney as it would against other fighters, but we'll see. I mean, if Green can evade him for a round, which he has unbelievable footwork, I'm picking McKinney to win if I had to pick. Am I confident? Absolutely not. But I'd say I'd lean towards McKinney. But I think, yeah, it's an interesting fight for sure.
And obviously the main event and co-main event typically get the bonus, but I think if you were trying to guess who's likely getting another bonus, this fight would
Absolutely.
be fight of the night or performance of the night. I think it's pretty much a guarantee for at least one of those.
Yeah, I mean, as I'd mentioned it first, but it is a deep card. It seems like it's been a while since we've had these, um, you know, 13, 14 fight cards, which are all very interesting. Are there any of the prelims that have, caught your attention?
Well, I guess on the last one on the main card, I'm really excited about Loner Kavanaugh versus Brandon Royval.
Oh yeah, yeah,
They were
skipped over
both
that
in,
one.
they were both in amazing fights. Loner is going on the run of Brandon's, and Royval, has Royval has only lost to champions at this point. And so I think that's definitely one. I think the flyweight division is finally getting the respect it deserves as a division. It's long been one of my favorite divisions, and I just think everyone at the top of the division is, Royval is one of the few veterans that's still up there, and Loner, just all the young 25, 26-year-olds, up and coming. So I think it's going to be a real kind of generational test.
Loner could be future champion. I mean, there's a lot of people that got off his bandwagon with his loss to Charles Johnson, but I mean, Charles Johnson, he could finish anyone in that division. Genuinely, very very skilled striker. Um, famous for being a good comeback fighter and fighting when he's down on the scorecards. I mean, he just got caught, and it happens. And I think for Loner, it could be a learning experience. But if you talk about just someone who has the tools to be a champion at 125, I think he's got it. I think he's definitely a dark horse in the UFC. And he was up on the scorecards. He was winning that fight, and I think he showed that against Moreno. I think there are a lot of people counting him out, and he went out and won what I thought was a pretty, and again, this is hindsight, but I think that was a pretty unanimously agreed upon decision there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean,
Um,
we've seen in the past losing against Charles Johnson isn't the worst thing.
yeah, maybe that's a recipe to becoming champ.
It's, the current generation's Michael Johnson.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, yeah, I guess
I,
going back to the prelims, the obvious choice, I think is, it's crazy to see Robert Whitaker on a prelim. I've been watching this
yeah,
sport for a decade, and I don't think I've ever seen him on a prelim before. So, at a new weight class. So I'm definitely very excited to see, how Whitaker does, at his new weight class. Adapting a Krylov who's big for 205. It's not like, he's getting a former middleweight also moving up. He's getting someone that has fought at heavyweight as well.
yeah. I mean, I would say, Whitaker on this card, both Whitaker and Holloway are two of my favorite fighters on the UFC roster currently. Um, both of them, phenomenal fighters, phenomenal people. Um, I worry a little bit about Whitaker in this one. I think, he's had a little bit of questions about his chin. Um, I think going up to 205, I don't know if that'll serve him well. We'll ultimately see, but I think he looked very undersized against RDR. And granted, RDR is a massive, massive guy for the weight class. I mean, if you want to talk about depth cuts, he's one of the guys in
Yeah,
the UFC that
and when he fought
Mount
his minus
Rushmore of depth cuts.
225.
Yeah, so I mean, he was undersized in that fight against RDR. I mean, he's usually giving up size to his opponents at 185. I think it's a mistake. It's never at this stage in his career. I think there are certain guys we always see where they almost outgrow their weight class and inevitably move up to 155. Like Holloway comes to mind, Alex Pereira comes to mind, where they're just massive for
Yeah,
featherweight or middleweight, and they move out. They move up in weight class, and it serves them really well. But Whitaker's not in that category. It's almost as if he's it's not I don't think it's a necessity, and I don't think it's a good sign when you have a fighter who's kind of on. We'll just say how it is. I think that at 35, he's definitely on a downwards trajectory. At least, he's lost 3 out of his last 5. Coming off losses, and again, no shame in losing to Hamzat or
yeah,
RDR, but I think he's going to be very outsized here.
yeah. And then, is there any fight on the prelims that catches your attention? Just besides that one.
Yeah, there's a couple, but last point, I think with Krylov, I think Whitaker obviously has a footwork and speed advantage. I think if he can employ a jab, teep kick, I think if he can keep Krylov off of him for a round or so, I could see him banking a decision win. I could see him knocking out Krylov in the second or third. I would say if I had to make a pick, I'd almost lean towards Whitaker, but I think that's probably of any fight on the main card from a kind of a stylistic perspective. I think that's the one I'm most looking forward to, actually, is Whitaker Krylov. But yeah, other events or other fights that are really interesting. I'd say Damian Pinas against Cesar Almeida is one that I'm really excited for.
Yeah, I mean, Pinas is one of the best, prospects. But he's still only 23, 24, but does not look like it. I
No,
think, speaking of guys that are going to outgrow the division, I'm not sure how much longer he can stay at 185.
no, I mean he's 6 foot. He's shredded to the gills. You want to talk about a guy who looks like a UFC fighter, we made a joke about it earlier this week. It's that 9-1 record is even more intimidating than the 9-0 record. When you find out how he lost via illegal kick. So I mean, he's 9-1 with 1 loss in the first round due to an illegal kick. Reminds me of a DQ from like John Jones 12-6. But then since then he's rattled off 5 straight finishes in Shooto Brazil, for the first or for his second and third, and then since then got a first round TKO on the Dana White Contender Series, and then knocked out Wesley Schultz. Also, very impressively within I think the 3rd minute on that one. And Wesley Schultz is not a slouch either. I believe he's now 1-1 in the UFC. He had a couple fights on the Dana White Contender Series, but I mean, he just
Great.
won via finish. So I'm excited. I think he's a very real prospect.
Certainly. And then I think, final prospects, that everyone's very excited about is Gable Steveson. The only guy that we've seen with this wrestling background or comparable is Henry Cejudo. I mean, I think
Yeah.
those are, Olympic gold medalists. So I think anytime you get an athlete like that to come over to MMA, it's definitely, I have no idea what to expect, but it's definitely something to get exciting.
And don't quote me on this. I think at some point this week, I don't know if currently he is, but so I'm not really keeping up with the lines, but I believe he's the biggest UFC favorite ever, or he was at some point this week. So I don't think that requires a lot of breakdown, but Yeah, I think that's obviously, a fight you can't miss. And then lastly, I would say another one I'm looking forward to is obviously Tracy Cortez versus Tong Wong. That'll be really interesting. I think Wong kind of got exposed in not one but two fights now for her ground game. I think stylistically Cortez has the advantage. I think if she can get Wong down, Wong's probably not going to be able to get it back up. But that'll be very telling in terms of if we see a lot of wrestling and anti-grappling improvements out of her. I think that'll show her not only ability to defend the takedown, but her ability to improve as she climbs the ranks, because I think if she can employ some anti-grappling techniques, she'll be a real contender.
Yeah, and again, if she can manage right at the top of the division, she holds the win over Valentina.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Pereira Izzy thing. So I definitely think, if she's able to get close enough, that's definitely something I think they'd love to cash in on.
Oh yeah, I mean, if as long as it's not a liability in the wrestling, I think, like you said, if she comes from, I mean, you talk about being an expert in one of the disciplines of mixed martial arts, and Gable Stevenson, Chong Wong is also in that similar category as far as just having such a dominant skill set when it applies to a certain discipline. And so when you look at her kickboxing background and what she's achieved there, if she can show any signs of improvement, because Cortez is going to shoot. I mean, it'll be interesting if she doesn't shoot in the first minute or two. I would be shocked. But lastly, got to talk about No Love.
Yeah, former champion Garbrandt. Again, if people haven't watched it, one of the most amazing title performances ever in 2016 against Dominic Cruz. I think that was truly, I don't use it lightly, a magical performance, for lack of a better word. I mean, he was just on a different level that night. And then, obviously, in some recent fights, it hasn't gone his way. Giannis has a lot of power. But, I'm interested to see how Garbrandt reacts to that. Again, I think, the longer the fight goes, I think I think Cody may have a shot, but then I could see either fighter actually finishing it quickly, or I could see either fighter by decision.
Yeah, Cody, I think was certainly on his way to a loss last time out. He got kicked in the cup. I mean, how
Yeah.
many times that fight? That was really brutal to watch. I'd much rather rewatch the Dominic Cruz performance. I don't want to watch that fight again. That was really
It's hard to
difficult
watch.
to
Yeah.
watch. I'd take a Tylenol if I had to rewatch that. I'm a huge Cody fan. I thought that was a really one of the most exciting title runs that I've ever kind of been a part of as a fan of the sport. I think Cody's run, I think Charles's run. There's been a couple other phenomenal runs that have just been really exciting to be a part of the ride. Since then it's been kind of tough sailing, but he gotta pick Giannis here. But I would say personally I'm pulling for Cody. I think it's gonna be tough.
But yeah, for anyone watching, feel free to put your fight picks in the comments below. Definitely interested to see who you all pick. Make sure to like, comment, and share and subscribe the video. Thank you.
Sounds good.